Welcome back to Kind Regards, the show. It's nice to have you with us. We can often feel overwhelmed by the tasks that we sort of necessarily have to do to shore up our lives against entropy, and we can also feel underwhelmed by them. We have to do the dishes, we have to cook for ourselves, we have to keep showing up to work. We have to keep sending rent. We have to keep paying bills. We have to iron our clothes. Well, I don't iron clothes. I don't know if you guys iron clothes. Also, by the way, let's stop caring about ironed clothes as a culture. Can we do that? Can we let go of pressed shirts and just let us all off the hook there? Maybe we can. Maybe this is the butterfly wing that sets off the dominoes and we'll all wake up to how ridiculous ironed clothes are to me. Anyways, we have to do these things, even if we don't cook for ourselves. Have you ever ordered food out on the phone so many times that just choosing which food someone is going to cook for you, deliver to your house, and then you're going to eat and then throw the trash in the trash, that is exhausting, that you're like underwhelmed by that? You're like, oh my God, another day, another Deliveroo or, Uber Eats or whatever. Even that, even when we outsource these tasks, it can feel, there's a great, it's not true, but there's a great myth about a suicide note from the 1700s that references all the buttoning and unbuttoning, which maybe isn't funny. Maybe I shouldn't laugh at, but this captures the thing for me. It's just sometimes we get up and we go, oh, I gotta brush my hair and have a shower and brush my teeth and do all that stuff, and it can, life can feel relentless in this way. Is this all my life is? Just putting out spot fires, just making sure that things don't fall apart, just taking buckets up the hill all the time. Is that what life is? Is that what my life has become? I think that this is a common problem. That I've heard other people express and I've felt in my own life. Personally, it happens most when unimportant but urgent tasks take precedent or precedent importance. They're more important. They feel more important than the important tasks that are non-urgent. Does this make sense? There's a thing called the Eisenhower matrix, which is from Dwight. I think his name's Dwight Eisenhower. He was the commander of the Allied forces during World War II. He's an American guy. Later became the president. And he had a way of dividing up his tasks into four groups. He had the important and not important sort of sides of the matrix, and then he had the urgent and not urgent side of the matrix. So the urgent and important things would take the most precedent, or would be the most important, the things that would come first. And the non-urgent, non-important tasks would come last. But the real wisdom of this system is that he said it was really easy for urgent stuff that was not important to take the lead over stuff that was important but not urgent. Now, what's some concrete examples of this? I've just moved into a new place, so that there felt like there was all these urgent tasks. Right now, I can only cross my legs in two ways because there are books all over the floor, and so putting away these books or unpacking kitchen utensils feels really urgent. Even though these books can live here for a week and nothing happens, my life purpose isn't tied up in whether I have a clean floor. This is not an important task, but the urgency of it feels like it sucks you in and says like, oh, you got to do this. You can't go to bed without doing the washing up. You can't, move on to the creative project unless the clothes washing is on. Do all this urgent, unimportant faffery. And Eisenhower said no, that when we do this, we lose sight of the really important stuff, the really life-defining stuff, the really, career-defining tasks. And instead we are bogged down in putting out little fires, solving these little problems so that they don't grow into bigger problems, shoring up our lives against the forces of entropy all the time, all this buttoning and unbuttoning, and just making sure things don't fall apart, when really our life is passing us by, and the really important stuff that, yeah, our roof isn't going to fall in if we don't start the creative project today. But what are we really here to do? We're really here to do the creative project, to quit the job that we hate and try and find something new, to make the call that we've been putting off, to tell our friend, hey, I know I don't see you very much, but you really mean a lot to me, and I want you in my life. These little things that they're the important things, even though they're so easy to put off. Does this make sense? The non-urgent tasks, the urgent tasks that are not important are psychologically also much easier to do. So this is kind of my trap too. It's much easier psychologically for me to do a bunch of stuff that I can't get wrong. Putting books away, I can't screw it up. I'm not making myself vulnerable. I'm not doing something that might not work. I'm not being creative. For me, I'm avoiding making these videos. I'm avoiding doing my writing. I'm avoiding getting my old job back because I have insecurities about my workplace and how I fit in there, and whether it's all going to go as planned, whether they even want me back. So I find solace in the buttoning and unbuttoning, even though it's relentless, and even though it makes me feel exhausted by the sheer mass and infinity of cooking and cleaning and blah blah blah. They're psychologically much more comfortable to be in than doing the important but non-urgent stuff. I hope that is clear, and I hope that it resonates too with you. And there's a great way of thinking about this aside from the Eisenhower matrix, which I got from Oliver Burkeman, who's a great British writer, who I really recommend. He's one of the clearest and feels like the most sane voices in this sort of self-help and productivity world. He seems really balanced and always fills me with sort of good feelings. I never feel too much pressure or anything. He's great. Anyways, big plug to Oliver Burkeman. But he has a piece that I read in his most recent book, Meditations for Mortals, which is brilliant, and I highly recommend. And it's called What's the Life Task? You can also find this on the Waking Up app. If you look for Oliver Burkeman's 2 series on that app, you'll be able to find What's the Life Task. And you can listen to it there. Waking Up is free upon request. It's a sort of meditation, mindfulness app. But it's filled with great wisdom about much more than just mindfulness. And Burkeman has a series on there. You can access it there, or you can read an article or buy his book. And essentially he says, he takes this from Carl Jung, a story about Carl Jung, where Carl Jung is at home and he's been having these fainting spells that might be related to maths class or something. And so he's spent 6 whole months at home, and the doctor said, oh, maybe he's got epilepsy, but no one really knows what's wrong with him. But Jung was enjoying himself. He got to read whatever he wanted. He was at home every day, didn't have to do homework. He got to be out in nature all the time. He was having a good time. Then he was eavesdropping with, from afar, he kind of heard his dad talking to a friend, and his friend said, oh, and how's little Carl? And his dad said, oh, it's a terrible business. No one knows what's wrong with him, and, what's going to happen if he can't, stand on his 2 feet and earn his own living? Like, what happens if he is afflicted with this for his whole life? I don't know what to do. And it's a sad thing. And apparently hearing this struck Jung like a thunderbolt. Carl Jung, of course, is the son. And he realized immediately what he had to do, and that was start studying, get back to school, and that was his life task. That was the task that he had kind of been hiding from, and that he needed to get back to it. And he stood up and he went into his father's study, and he started cramming with a real intensity, learning Latin or whatever the hell people used to do in the 1880s or whenever Jung was a boy, for their school projects. And that was, he had this renewed vigor for life, and he realized what he had to do. He had to get back to work. And we all, whether or not we believe in life assigning us tasks, perhaps as like a materialist, you go like, yeah, that's just some hooky. We're just making up. Oh yeah, life wants me to eat pancakes, or life wants me to do this or that. I'd ask you to please suspend your disbelief here and engage with it as sort of, there's an exercise here that can be done that is kind of irrespective of whether you believe that like life is assigning us dharma or some kind of obligation to do the next thing that is X, Y, or Z, and instead it's kind of bear with me here if you don't mind. So what is a life task? Well, first of all, it's important. It is meaningful and it's not frivolous. It's not eating pancakes or just doing the next desire. It's not easy. Instead, it's difficult. It requires a bit of fortitude and a bit of strength to get to face it and to start moving through it and doing the task. But it's the kind of good difficult that feels satisfying. It feels like you're expanding rather than contracting. It feels like it's growing your comfort zone. Excuse me. And pushing you into a place that, maybe you're not capable now, but excuse me, with enough hard work, you'll feel more comfortable in that place. So it's kind of outside of your comfort zone. It's good, difficult, expansive, and it's also ours. So a life task, in Jung's case, the life task was essentially doing what his father hoped for him to do, which is go back to school. And we shouldn't get confused here. That's a coincidence. For some people, the life task might be knuckling down at work and doing the report, or actually, yeah, I should stop ignoring my assignments at uni and I should get back to that and do that thing. And that's what society wants from you. It's what your boss wants from you. It's what your assignment supervisor wants from you. It's what your parents might want from you. But it might also be the inverse of that. If you're always overachieving and overworked, or you hate your job, and it's not your purpose, and secretly deep down that you should be doing something else, the life task might be to quit your job. It might be to work less hard. It might be to create spaciousness and room for other activities, to get back in touch with a hobby that brought you so much joy, but you've left behind because of, this job that is so demanding. It might be marching into your boss's office and saying, I want 4 days a week instead of 5. So yeah, it could be defying the sort of wishes of others. And it could also be to, coincidentally capitulate to those desires of other people that they project onto us. That's kind of neither here nor there, but it's ours. It's our life task. It's not someone else's wishes for us. It's our task, which leads me into that it's actually possible to do in your life. It's not this kind of grand notion of destiny that, or fate or something, that I'm destined to be a Russian ballet dancer, even though I'm not Russian. I live here. I've never done ballet, and I'm probably too old to become that now. If you have 2 children, you're probably not going to be able to work 18 hours at a tech startup. And if you have $100 in the bank, your life task isn't going to be to buy a $5,000 camera and become a professional photographer that way, though it might include slowly saving up for that thing. But it has to be actually possible. The life task has to be a real thing. It's based in your life. It's based in your reality. It's your life task. So it has to make some kind of a sense, like that has to be actually feasible. This, by the way, in case you're like, wow, these are great ideas, this is all lifted almost verbatim from Oliver Burkeman. So like, full credit to Burkeman here. I don't know if this counts as plagiarism. I don't know if me just saying, oh, by the way, I got this from Burkeman, is sort of, absolves me here. But that's the reality. And go check out his work. He phrases it much nicer than I do. So yeah, he's great. And so finally, now that we kind of know what a life task kind of looks like and feels like and probably is and probably inversely isn't, we can ask ourselves amid, the tides of, all this stuff that we have to get done, and the sort of confusion of external obligations and internal obligations, and what do they want from me, what do I want from me, and but I've got to do the dishes before I get started on the next creative project. We can ask ourselves this in order to help us sort of find where it is that we're hiding out, because if you're anything like me or like most of us, there is a place in us where we kind of hide out from that thing that we know we should be doing. For me, it's making these videos again. It's committing to a meditation practice, not just when I feel like it, not just when my morning goes perfectly to plan, but every single day. It's like brushing my teeth twice a day, get on the mat. It's a non-negotiable. That feels like my life task. It's difficult, but I know it's good. I know that it will help me get where I'm going. And all the excuses that surround it. Oh, but what about the dishes? Oh, I got to get those, plug socket extenders from Bunnings today. Otherwise, what's going to happen? This is all me just hiding out from the real task, which is making these videos, shipping my articles, getting on the mat every day. These are the real things. And by asking us what is the life task here, I think it can sort of uncloak some of the BS from the real sort of source, the really important stuff that may not be urgent, but is really why we're here. That's really what is most meaningful to us. And no one's going to kick the door down if we don't do it. But if it doesn't get done, that would be a real shame. And finally, I'd like to say that when I'm doing my life task, when I feel like I'm on track with my creative projects, when I'm meditating regularly, when I'm spending adequate time with my wife and feeling like a good partner, when a few of those sort of those big 5 values in my life are attended to, and I feel like I'm doing what I can in those domains, the stuff that supports all of that, which is, a bit of cooking and a bit of cleaning and a bit of, I'm going to organize these books later probably, it feels much easier. It doesn't feel like this relentless putting out spot fires that I described earlier in the video that we kind of started with. Instead, like when you've really done the hard work, when you've expanded yourself in this way and tried really hard at the stuff that matters most, there's a kind of depletion that happens. After writing for 3 hours, I can't really write for much longer than that. And then in my low energy sort of, depleted state, get some BS done. Yeah, shore up your life against the forces of entropy. Yeah, pay some bills. Like, it's so much easier to do that because it feels like my day has been filled with meaning. It feels like my day has, well, not filled, but that I've had my dose of important life, important tasks. Which helps me out. Not only am I not constantly putting out spot fires, but the spot fires are much easier to put out. It's much easier to clear up some books once I've already done the main thing, because I'm not hiding out. I'm not avoiding that big stuff. So the crux of the video, asking yourself, when you come to a junction, when you've eaten breakfast and you get that pause moment, or you get home from work and you got those 3 hours, those critical 3 hours of afternoon time that are kind of free, but you could easily fill up with a bunch of crap. Asking yourself, what is the life task here? What is my life task? Can really sort of clear the decks and produce some kind of clarity as to what is most meaningful. But yeah, thanks very much for watching. I appreciate you being here. It's lovely to have an audience for this kind of work that I do. I love doing the work, and it's lovely to hear from you in the comments when that happens. But yeah, I hope it works for you. I hope it's useful. Also, big shout outs to Oliver Burkeman. I don't know how many times I got to say it, but he's huge. I'll link some of his work, some of his books, and his course on waking up, if any of you have waking up. As I said, it's free on request. So, if you can't afford to pay for waking up. You can also get a 7-day free trial or a 30-day free trial if you just want to test it out. You don't want to ask for it for free right away. But yeah, I'll link that down below. So if you just click on the waking up link and follow the prompts, you can gain access to that talk from him and lots of his other really insightful content. So big shout outs to Oliver Burkeman. He's got a great newsletter too, which he just sends out now and then. And I'm always pleased to see it in my inbox, which is more than I could say for a lot of newsletters. But yeah, if you enjoyed this content, I've got a Substack where I write articles. There's a handful of articles, a bit more thorough than this kind of stuff. Lots of quotes from literature and philosophy and spiritual texts and things like that. I really scrub them up and polish them. So if you like that kind of content, follow those links. And if you want to listen to the content in the car or on Spotify instead of YouTube, or you want to watch the content at home on your laptop instead of listening to it in the car, there are the respective links for the Spotify and YouTube channels below. But yeah, thanks for being with me. I couldn't be happier to be back making these videos. So yeah, thanks for being here. Thank you. Goodbye.